Hey everybody, spoilers for the full season of the Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian as well. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Script Department. I'm John. I'm joined again by Marcus and Brad to talk about the finale of the Book of Boba Fett, and we'll be kind of doing our kind of wrap up of the overall series itself. Before I get into that, if you haven't already, do check out our website, thescriptdepartment.net, for all the various projects that our global network of screenwriters are up to. You can also find us on social media, hit the links in the description. And if you haven't, subscribe to our podcast. Just search for The Script Department wherever you get your podcasts. And give this video a like as well, and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want. Okay, so this was episode 7, the final episode of the Book of Boba Fett. Been a very strange season, I think, at least going by our conversations. I've enjoyed my time with this show, but definitely at no point has it blown me away, except for maybe a few cameos here and there in recent episodes. I'm going to run through the synopsis of this episode very, very briefly. I'm really just kind of flying through the talking points here, the plot points, and then I'll hand it over to you guys for your thoughts. So in the last episode, we had the big explosion at the club. And any hope that Jennifer Beals' character or anyone in that club would play any pivotal role in this show is just quickly dashed, because as we find out in the beginning of this episode, they're all dead. There's nothing left. And the team, Mando, Boba Fett, Fennec, they're all gathered in the ruins of the club. Doesn't seem to be anybody around. Doesn't seem to be anybody interested in investigating or helping or anything like that. It's just the three of them. And they decide to hunker down and wait for the Pikes to make their next move. Cad Bane ultimately brings the first wave of soldiers, I guess, to the door to launch their attack. Boba Fett and Mando fend them off, rocket packs and all that kind of good stuff happening. Then they leave, and then these two giant droids that look like they come out of the Terminator franchise start. They're a bit too chrome for me. I don't know, just putting that out there. They end up kind of marching around, blasting away, not hitting anything. And it is like, if it sounds like I'm being kind of cynical here, they're really bad at shooting anything in this show. These two giant droids that absorb most of the action in this episode. And then Grogu, who arrived by Uber X-Wing, lands down and manages to save the day, or at least uses some of his powers to help them get an advantage at the very least. In the end, it's the Rancor that saves the day, does this whole Hulk smash thing, and even then struggles to kind of really defeat those droids. Those are pretty strong droids. Boba Fett has a duel with Cad Bane, wins in the end. Fennec Shand assassinates all the mob bosses and the Pike leader. So now crime is gone forever, it seems, until the next season. And Mando flies away with Grogu.
Sorry, what did you say? Until the next what?
Until the next season.
Right.
Is that me being ambitious?
I think so.
Do we think are we getting another season? No,
I'm not so sure.
I don't know. If it sounds like I'm having fun with this, it's because there's not much else to do with this other than it was a giant shootout. It was a video game. It was first wave, second wave, third wave, and yeah, Chekhov's Rancor saved the day.
Chekhov's Rancor, yeah.
Yeah. The city is safe. Everybody loves Boba Fett again, and Mando flies away with Grogu in the Starfighter.
In Chekhov's droid pod, yeah.
In Chekhov's droid pod.
You totally called it. I
totally called it, yeah.
Of course, Grogu is going to turn his back on the Jedi path because somebody made us a co-pilot seat for him in the ship.
Yeah.
Exactly. that's why you turned down the teachings of Luke Skywalker, because, well, it would be rude not to. He made a seat for me in the ship. Okay, Marcus, you've been skitting the whole time. What's your feelings on this episode?
that is effectively what it is. I've got so many notes, but ultimately I'm kind of looking at them, and I just the one thing that springs to mind for me, and I think it's summed up in the last couple of moments of this episode, is that the makers of this show just don't care about Boba Fett. And I've said it before, and it just is the thing that I take from this above anything else. Beyond the bizarre structure, beyond the almost zero plot, beyond the weird fact that Fennec Shan disappears out of Act 1 just to pop up in Act 3 to assassinate some people, even though it would have been far more impactful if Boba Fett did it, and it would have made complete sense, because it's after all the action is done. That would have been complete fine. Even after the fact that they killed Cad Bane for literally no reason, and then gave him some kind of bizarre overhead shot like it was impactful, even though it wasn't. Even though, they've built up this whole thing. You know what I really thought, what I was really excited about is the X-Wing appears, and I thought, wow, we're going to get an air support scene. We're going to get Slave 1, or not Slave 1 anymore, whatever it's called now. We're going to get the N1, and we're going to get an X-Wing. R2 flying the X-Wing, Mando in the N1, Boba Fett in his ship, flying over.
No shit. Yeah, Boba Fett's ship never appears. Yeah.
No, but it would have solved all their problems, right? Because if they just had some air support, they could have they don't even need to be nearby. You just launch one of those great missile things out of any of those ships. Oh, it's done. There we go. We saved the day.
He took the speed bikers out. The speed bikers who turn out to be innocent, by the way. He took those guys out in a heartbeat.
Yeah. He did.
Heartbeat. And there were like 20 of them.
So, he sorry to interrupt. He went, but you make a brilliant point. He went back because he disappears at some point when Mando is doing a lot of the fighting. And then he goes to get a Rancor, he's clearly at his palace looking at, at some point he's like, the Rancor, which is going to be unreliable but cool, or do I take my ship, which will be reliable but cool as well? Yeah. And he just
that I spent an entire episode trying to free, trying to do, and and you know what it would have done as well? It would have tied all those threads together, because then suddenly it makes sense that we see Mando and him spending basically half an episode building a ship. It makes sense that Luke Skywalker's there, because then suddenly his X-Wing and R2-D2 are involved, and they can save the day. It makes sense that these three strands, and it pulls these three elements together loosely, but it pulls them together in a sense to then mean that they all had to be there in order to save the day. Therefore, thank you very much, screenwriting structure is restored. But they just don't. It seems like such an obvious missed opportunity to me. I just think it's really weird.
I'll just clarify, for if people are listening who haven't seen the episode, Luke is not there piloting the X-Wing. When the X-Wing arrives, and they keep calling out, "Oh, officers, do you need anything, whatever?" And they're very kind of carefully hiding the fact that we don't see who's in the X-Wing so clearly, and officers was obviously not the rebel pilots or whatever you want to call them, the Republic pilots. And then it turns out it's R2-D2 is piloting the X-Wing, and clearly Grogu and Luke have had a breakup, and he's like, "Get out!
get this guy off my planet!
You've wasted my time."
So it's. Yeah, so Luke isn't there. So the X-Wing is there, but we weren't. Yeah.
But you know what I mean, though? It would have, aside from the fact it would have been cool, which, to be honest with you, seems to be the only thing this show is actually particularly interested in, is what would look cool on screen and how interested we can. That's a bit of an overstatement, but it's very interested in bringing back these old characters and getting these moments of ooh in there. It seems to be prioritizing them over actual story, in my opinion. So why would you not have that moment? You can just picture it like the Boba Fett ship flanked by a Naboo starfighter and an X-Wing. Like it would have saved the whole thing for me. It would have saved the whole thing for me. I would have been like, right, delete all the previous episodes. I want to do them all again and fall down on the other side of it because you did this and I'm happy. But it just seems a really obvious missed opportunity to me.
You've made me so annoyed now. You've really I enjoyed that episode just because I enjoy everything that they're doing. And the screenwriter in me is pulling the hair out of my head, but as a Star Wars fan, I'm just able to sit there and have fun with it. But now I'm just really pissed that we didn't get that. Because you're right. Because it's Luke's home planet as well. So, like,
did you not want to go back for a visit? Like, surely you got to go, see the sights, go to, Vegas Canyon.
Exactly.
You could have had Boba Fett saying something like, these are my people, which he keeps saying, and they're not your people.
Yeah,
they're not. The clone troopers were your people, but they're Luke's. They are Luke's people. They are Anakin's people. Anyway, go on, Brad. What do you think?
It makes sense for that.
I feel a little bit let down. I feel quite conflicted emotionally after loving so many parts of the show as a whole. Like, it's almost been like watching an Olympic gymnast. Like, it's the big stage. Star Wars is a big deal. You've forgiven a few little trips along the way, and then you're looking forward to the big triple backflip at the end, and they don't stick the landing, and they possibly tear their cruciate ligament and have to retire. And it's like this. It feels like the whole thing has been like exposition for the other shows that are going to happen. So they've since episode 4 or 5, like, Boba's had very little. He's been very passive as a protagonist, if we can still call him that. He had very few wants. He was I was screaming at the TV for this last episode because the amount of times he just went along with everyone else's shit. He was like, I think at the start there was a moment where Mando comes back and he says, right, Freetown will fight, but you got to stop the spice trade. And he's like, I agree to those terms. And Fennec Shan's like, what? Wait, why? There's loads of money to be made. And then there's another moment where they're like, oh, let's go back to the palace, everyone. And then quite disrespectfully, they go, no, that's a terrible idea. It's like, really? It's like, you should stay here. And he's like, okay, we will stay. And everyone's like, what? And then
even
later on,
it's a much worse idea. A much worse idea.
It wasn't his idea either. And then he wants to get into a shootout with Cad Bane, and she talks him out of it. He's like, totally, no, I'm going to shoot this guy. And she's like, no, not now, Boba, calm down. Back to the burnt out bar. And it's like, what? He didn't make any decisions apart from getting the Rancor, obviously, but that was one he made many episodes ago.
I'm glad you mentioned the spice trade there for a second. So he's obviously against the spice trade, and Fennec is like, yeah, there's money to be made here, and he's like, no, we're gonna. Isn't he like, he's totally against it, right? I mean, yeah. Okay. Then why are you trying to be a crime lord? You can't. It's like he doesn't understand the world he's going into. You cannot. Michael Corleone. Saying, I'm going to make the family legitimate. You're sitting there going, yeah, but that's not really possible. And that's fine. He's not able to do that. He struggles throughout 3 movies to be legitimate. I think maybe he does in part 3 or whatever, but it's kind of too late at that point. But, he's never really able to because it's a naive idea. But there's also, but at least he's able. He understands the world he's in. This is a guy who Boba Fett has said, "Well, I'm going to do it better." Like, that's his motivation. I know I can do it better than them. But what he really wants to do is do what the Marshal wants, which is just clean up crime.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand how you feel you can walk both those lines of being. You can't sit in Jabba's palace and have people bow to you and pay respect to you and give you fruit and stuff like that. That's what people do to mob bosses. That's what people do to people paying tribute. Like, he wants people to pay tribute to him in the first episode. So you want the mob boss thing. And then in the end, you're saying, no, well, we don't really want to get into the drug trade because that's bad, and like, so what is it? Because it just, you can't have both here.
It feels very ill thought through. Like, from his point of view, it's like, oh, I'm going to get into this drug trade. Then he's like, oh, I really don't like this drug trade. Maybe I'll do something else. And it's like, come on.
Now, Lucasfilm never ever pitched this as a gangster show. I think the fans and critics and people like ourselves might have projected a gangster quality to it. but you must know what you're getting yourself into. You know,
But I think it did that itself as well to start with. I mean, the first shot we had was the end credit scene in The Mandalorian. He's sitting on Jabba's throne, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's what it is, and that, you know, it did a good job of presenting itself as a sort of a gangster thing, but he's never really took the lead, I don't think, of it.
That's the thing. I just don't think they knew what to do with it, and I just don't think that I think they were given the task of setting up a bunch of other shows. I don't think they really cared that much about Boba Fett, and I think they just kind of did what they had to do to get through the series and set up a bunch of other stuff, you know. Whereas if they had the freedom, and for the record, for, you know, don't get me wrong here, Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, the creators of this, I'm not putting it on them, because they are well respected and they've proven themselves time and time again in this franchise, let alone in others. I think they were given an impossible task, and I think this is what comes out of it, and I think they've done the best they could with it under those circumstances. And it's not all bad. Like, it's not all bad. There's a lot of great stuff in it. I just wish they could have spent more time on that great stuff. I think that's the thing.
Yeah, I think there's, you know, they're going to do Mandalorian season 3. They're going to keep going. They've done a great job this season. This entire, you know, Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett, has been unusual for various reasons, and I've been quite scathing of it up to this point. But if they made another one, I'd watch it.
Yeah,
I would watch it. I'd still watch it. Whether to like shout at the TV again, or to see more, you know, more amazing stuff like we saw in Eps 5 and 6. Was it the
Mandalorian episodes? Yeah.
Yes, the Mandalorian episodes. But it's been unusual. But I would watch another one. Like, I'll watch the Mandalorian. I'll watch the Ahsoka. I'll watch Ewan McGregor being Obi-Wan again. Can't wait for that.
Man.
We will do a discussion next week about Obi-Wan, because I think there's so much we can jump into on that one. I wanted to bring up. Oh, sorry, go on, Marcus.
Well, no, just while we mentioned Obi-Wan there, and perhaps as a quick, I suppose, teaser for that chat coming up, it is quite interesting that they're gonna have 2 seasons of Star Wars television, both set on Tatooine at 2 quite different times, so close to one another. And I wonder how the reception to Boba Fett, which has been, I think, largely pretty chilly, I wonder if that will impact on the Obi-Wan show in any way, and I wonder if that will hurt it or enhance it in any way. I don't know, perhaps that discussion for perhaps next week, so tune in if you're interested to see that.
It is part of the Star Wars kind of formula now, where one thing enhances another. I think it's rare when, and people will obviously have their opinions, but I think it's rare when a new Star Wars product hurts something else. I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of Solo, but I didn't think it weakened the character of Han Solo. I just didn't think it did anything for the character of Han Solo, you know. But I don't think it left us rewriting the idea of that character in our brains. And it is very possible that there are things that we've seen in this that we might see the earlier incarnation of in the Obi-Wan show. I have to get my head around the idea that the Obi-Wan show is set before all of this. You know, I think we're so now used to just being in this world with these characters that you're not getting Luke the way we've seen him so far.
No.
There's got to be a young Luke in it, though. Surely, absolutely. I mean,
that's for a different episode. Otherwise, we're going to milk it. We're going to run dry. There isn't that much we can talk about anyway, because we don't really know much about it. So, so I wanted to bring up this one thing which infuriated me in this episode. It infuriated me on every single front. I think this is the worst scene of the entire season, right? And you can let me know what you think.
So excited.
There's a scene at the very, very early on where Fennec is narrating her plan. Where okay, I've got our team of 10 people, by the way, 3 of which are in this room. So I've got 7 people out there in this city. What's the city? Is it Mos Eisley or Mos Espa? Mos Espa.
Mos Espa.
Mos Espa.
Yeah.
Mos Espa.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've got 7 people sent out around, scattered to the winds in Mos Espa to keep watch. I've got Chrysanthemum over here in this square. I've got 2 royal guards, not 1, just 2 of them over at the station keeping watch, and we've got a bunch of them over here. The mods are all grouped over in one corner. Nothing can slip through. It's like, no. You haven't set up a complex network of spies. This isn't, this isn't like pre-war whatever, where it's, there's just spies everywhere and everybody's paid off or whatever. No. This is just, you've got 7 people, 3 of which stand out like a sore thumb, and this is a city, by the way, where people can fly overhead. So, I mean, the idea that you are slipping through, that nothing can slip through the cracks. I mean, people can just walk right past him, and he would never know. Chrysanthemum would never know. And she says nothing can slip through, and then Cad Bane shows up outside, and Boba Fett says to Fennec, "I thought no one could slip through," or something to that effect. He buries her plan in front of Mando, and she looks at him as if to say, "Cut me some slack," or "You're always complaining," or something like that. She kind of cuts him this kind of look, and I just thought, you're all doomed, because if that's the level of your thinking, I mean,
Who is she telling this information though? Because it's not like one of those scenes where she's narrating and it flashes forward to show what will happen, like in Ocean's 11, where they're talking about the heist, and then you see flashes forward to the heist, and then they're back in the hotel room chatting about it. It's not that. They're already there doing these things, and she's explaining to Boba what she's done.
So obviously he doesn't know that.
Surely he would do though, right? Surely he would know. So the only person really that she's telling is the audience.
No, but
what's going on?
No, but I think you're right. I think he didn't know, because that reinforces your point earlier of him having absolutely no agency in his own crime, crime family.
And then he says, "I thought no one could sneak up on us," and it's like, no, Boba, do your job. Do your job as the crime lord. Take some responsibility for something.
Yeah, and you know what? Actually, to further that point, to further along him not having any agency in this, the last thing we see of, or nearly the last thing we see of him in this whole thing, is him looking at her going, "Don't know if I'm really up to this." Are you kidding me? You just spent 7 episodes trying to sort this out, and then you get to the end and you're like, "Should we go somewhere else?" Like, what are you doing, man?
But I like how she doesn't answer that either. He says, "I don't think we're up to this." And she just turns around and starts talking to someone else. Go, "Oh, you might not be, but I."
But you're right. It's
mad.
It's half, in the most Disney way possible. It's half Tony Montana saying the world is mine and I'm going to take it, and it's half Murtaugh in Lethal Weapon saying, "I'm too old for this shit."
Yeah.
And it's like one wants to retire, the other wants the world handed, is prepared to die for the world. And the show, so I don't know. I'm lost. Anyway, that was the worst scene I've seen in all of that show, because it was it's a terrible plan. It's riddled with plot holes. You are telling your boss, who should have signed off on this plan, or it should have been his plan to begin with. And surely it goes against the whole idea of, no, we're going to stay here in the club. Because it's the mods saying, no, we're staying here. And now she's like, "Okay, that's a good plan. By the way, I'm sending you off now to another part of the city." And it's even Boba Fett buries the plan. Like, okay, if Cad Bane had said something, or if Mando had said something, he's kind of the outsider of the two. But it seems like there's not even that agreement between the two of them. They should be totally in sync, Boba Fett and Fennec, in terms of their plan. They should complement each other. And it just seemed like they were... If it had been any other characters, they could have been bickering at that point,
Yeah. And you know what? I was totally into your... Sorry, go ahead.
Go, Marcus, after you.
I was going to say, I was totally into your twist reveal that she was going to end up betraying Boba Fett in this episode for exactly that reason, because she had given such a terrible plan. and she had done all of this stuff, and then she disappeared off, and he'd given her agency and things like that. I was so into the idea that right at the end this was going to be a cliffhanger, and reinforcements were going to appear, pin him down, and they were going to be like, how did you know? How did you find us? And she steps forward on the ship. She's like, it was me all along, or something like that. I was so into that, and I thought, this is where this is going. Maybe this can redeem it. No. Just not gonna. Just exposition instead, for no reason.
It was unusual that they did that, and then the trap from the families was sprung in such a weird way to ambush these few people scattered around. So, like, the mods, like these hipster millennial, like, Vespa crew, they attack them with, like, every blaster on the planet. And they can see them pulling blasters out of a box going, oh, there's something wrong here. It's like, they're going to shoot you. That's what's wrong. Like, can you not see them piling them? But then when it comes to Chrysanthemum, like the biggest Wookiee in the galaxy, with a hand cannon, they choose knives.
Yeah, they go with that.
There are no guns near Chrysanthemum. It's like, why not? He's got a hand cannon. He's got electric knuckle dusters. It's like, what's going on there? And then the guards, they just sort of like shoo them off. The Gamorreans, they just shoo them off of a cliff and kill them, like seven dudes.
Did you ever see Sicario, the Denis Villeneuve film?
Ooh, yeah.
Okay,
wow,
so there's a scene in Sicario where they're at the border, the Mexican border, and they notice that there's some people, and there's a big queue of cars, like there's 5 lanes of traffic or something like that, and they're all waiting to get through, get into the US. And you've got these FBI agents, are they CIA or I think they're FBI. Anyway, you've got these agents, or maybe they're DEA or something, but you've got these agents, and they've got these big rifles, and they're like, they notice that there's something wrong. There are people looking at us in their cars, and there's something wrong, and I don't quite, okay, look, we're going to get out and investigate. And they get out, and they're like walking around, and they're telling people to stay in your car, and people are a bit funny. And then you keep cutting back to this one car of these suspects, and you're thinking, are they suspects or not? And it's this incredibly tense moment where you think, like, at some point something's going to kick off here. We need to be ready. It's whoever can pull their trigger first is going to win this. But you got to be careful, because if you fire first, you've just killed an innocent person, and that's, it's holy war then. And that's what I was thinking at that moment. I was thinking, this should be, at the very least, trying to emulate the Sicario kind of border scene, which is, hugely famous at this point. There's nothing in this. There was no tension at all. No drama.
Well, there didn't seem to be any danger. After they all survived that ambush, you kind of think, oh, they're indestructible then. I mean, how, if you look at other gangster properties like Godfather, or even something like The Untouchables, there are these big scenes where an enormous character gets gunned down in cold blood, and whether a good guy or bad guy, you feel something. You're quite shocked by it. You feel quite emotional. If they'd have taken out someone really important, particularly if they're not going to get a second season, because I don't know if they will. Like, can you imagine if Chrysanthemum had been taken out in that moment? It would have been really, like, heartbreaking. I would have really felt something in that moment, or even all of the mods. Maybe not one of them, but all of them, because they're just one character, really. If they'd have all got taken out, and they'd have been, where are they? Guys. And, you cut to the communicator next to a pile of dead mods on the floor, and you're like, oh my God, they killed them all. There would have been... Yeah, because they survived that ambush, it kind of removed the threat. It didn't seem there was any threat anymore after that point. It's like, oh, okay, here's 2 like massive droids. I quite liked the droids. They're like the giant version of the destroyer droids. What were they called? Scorpionic Annihilator droids, and it's because they're Scorpiony. And that, they were when they roll up, it's like, oh, they're not going to be able to touch those things, and then lo and behold, they can't touch them. And that, for a moment, that was like, oh, this is going to be great. And then it's just it's very family friendly action kind of thing.
Why were they shooting them the whole time? You're like, there's moments where they're hiding, like they run away, they hide behind these walls. The droids presumably can't find them. I mean, I don't know, I'm assuming. But they just say, keep shooting. And it's like, well, yeah, but you can't touch this. So aren't you better off just aren't you better off just retreating and back to the palace or something instead of just constantly signposting where you are to the droids by firing
There was a
at it?
moment
Because
there. There was a moment there as well where Mando was standing. You had one droid here and one droid there, and Mando was in the middle. And they were both turning around to look at him, and he goes, "Oh crap," and gets out of there. And you just think, well, you've proven yourself to be a pretty decent strategist over 2 and a bit series at this point. You'd go, I've got a great opportunity here. They can blow each other up. It's like that's. I just thought that was a really obvious missed opportunity, if not even to just show that it didn't work. Even to show him go, I've got a great idea, and then find out it just doesn't work, and it just refracts and destroys a building or something. It's like, I think I would have.
I think I would have preferred that they're just using old Empire tech. That it's one of those 2-legged walkers or something where that there's it's not just this indestructible thing that requires a Rancor to destroy it. That actually,
hell.
Yes,
an AT-AT would have been amazing walking into that city. The Rancors crawling all over it.
And it could have been a moment to inspire the people as well, because I feel like that was something that was missing. The idea that this shouldn't be and it's like, no, they're not. We're going to stop them this time. We never stood up back in the day. We're going to stand up for ourselves now. And something like that, where you could have given agency to those people that Boba Fett is he keeps saying they're my people, but I mean, if he moves town, are they his people anymore? Because it doesn't feel like there's any real reason why they're his people. And I thought
it gives them the opportunity to choose Boba Fett as well, doesn't it? Like they choose their crime lord rather than having him forced upon them, like presumably Jabba was, and things like that. And that would have been, or if you want him to be legitimized, you've just killed the mayor at the end of this. Perhaps he becomes the mayor instead of the daimyo. Maybe that's how that works. And you legitimize, you fuse those two things together.
Fast forward 20 years.
Have an election, it's the crime lord elections.
Fast forward 20 years, and many back to tanks later, and Boba Fett is now like supreme emperor of the galaxy. I mean, this is how Phantom Menace started, isn't it?
Right.
No. So okay, we thought Fennec was going to turn. We talked about it. We talked about that through different episodes. I wasn't totally sold on that idea, only because I didn't think the writing was up to a level where that kind of character betrayal could happen. It just felt a bit one-dimensional the whole time, and so I didn't really believe that there was any fuel on that, in that story. And I was wondering why we were so kind of caught up, because I've seen other YouTube videos and stuff like that where they've talked about this. And I'm wondering, were we thinking like that because we were so starved for storytelling in that show? Like there's so little else happening in this that we're just assuming, well, it must be Fennec then. There must be something waiting in the wings.
I think that's exactly what it was.
Do you think so?
I think the conflict. I think the conflict was lacking. So they kept presenting us with opportunities for conflict and what might happen and what we might be left thinking about, and then they didn't come through with it. So it's like, because there was no conflict, we were looking for it ourselves, and the fact that Fennec seemed to be so much more of a efficient warrior than Boba. She was always saving him and always advising him. It's like she was the real crime lord. I mean, even there's a scene where the mods are all pinned down, and they're like, "We're pinned down. They're going to kill us all," and she just rolls up and she's like Arnie in Commando. She's like, and just kills all of them and goes, "Thank you," and they thank her, and she's like, "Manners," and just zooms off. And it's like, it's like she was probably the most badass person in this. She did all that without a Rancor or a Jedi, a Padawan to come to her assistance. She was all on her own, and or even armor. Yeah. And why didn't they shoot them in the legs? Is my my question. There's the scene where they're just getting completely barraged, and Boba's got nothing from the waist down. Like,
he hasn't even got anything like here. He's like,
why why don't they shoot them in the legs? They could shoot them off at the middle. Like, they could just be half at Mandalorian left.
Along those lines, right? There was a moment where they're hiding behind the people of Freetown have arrived, and they're hiding behind the speeder and everything. And I just had this image in my head of like they're hiding behind this, like, yeah, we've got cover. And I've just got this image of their little legs poking out under this floating thing, just all running around. Like the perfect targets to there's Chrysanthemum at one point is just sat on the ground behind it, and he's just like, oh look, here's a Wookiee, we can just shoot him in the back. It's madness. Like, but on your point there, John, the being star of the story, like I think I totally agree with you. Like, it's and you know, the conflict of everything, because this story could have been told in a 3-part special. Like, if you were focusing on Boba Fett in its just Boba Fett story, you could have told quite easily the Tusken Raider arc in a first episode. You could have told the coming to Tatooine and not coming to Tatooine, sorry, taking over Jabba's palace and the kind of the gangster stuff in a second episode, and then you could have easily got a lot more out of this last episode and spent a lot more time really bringing that to the fourth in a final episode, even if you gave yourself 1.5 episodes or something like that. And I think that's the problem, and I think that's probably why Mando, one of the, if I'm taking my cynical, the producers and Disney have made them do it hat off, and I'm looking at this from a story point of view, I think that's probably why Mando's involved. I think that's probably why Luke Skywalker came in and things like that, because there just isn't the story there to sustain 7 episodes.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you could have done the story shorter. And I think if this had been a movie, everything that happened in this episode could have been a great third act, right? And the action side of things could have been a great climax if they had been happening simultaneously. Like, Mando's doing this thing with the droids, and Grogu is helping him. And meanwhile, Boba Fett has the Rancor, and maybe he's dismembering a bunch of soldiers. Cobb Vanth might be, you know, dealing with Cad Bane or something, or the Freetown people are fighting off the Pikes because it's more of a symbolic, the community are fighting back, you know. I think you could have had your 3 different stages, kind of like the Dark Knight, where you've got people on the ferries, and then you've got Batman doing his thing, and then later on you've got the final showdown then with Two-Face. Instead, I think by having it like the video game thing, where you've got wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, it just felt very uninspired, I think, and felt very much like, yeah, you've been playing too many video games, and you haven't been watching enough movies or TV, actually, I think, in terms of how you've written this. I wanted to talk about very quickly just this other thing that kind of annoyed me, but in a funny way. It's the mayor's aide says, you know what, guys? I can go out and I can use my degree in negotiating, which I have from Coruscant University. And it's like, I can go and talk these people down. You may have to grovel, but I can, it's fine. I'll do the groveling. And Boba Fett is like, okay. And he said, give me the tablet. I'll write down what I want you to say. And very quickly, he just scribbles this thing. Here, take this in before I change my mind. Okay, thank you. And then the aide goes out, and he is, my dear Pikes, can I have an audience with you, etc. And he goes out to them, and he takes out the tablet, and he starts reading this beautifully composed, and long-ish spiel about I, Boba Fett, I'm of blah blah blah, so on and so forth, and he's just reading, and he's scrolling, and he doesn't know what he's going to say. Like, and then he gets to the point where you realize Boba Fett has kind of, has no intention of capitulating at all, and so he's written this, you will get nothing and you will leave and there will be no surrender or something like that. And the aide is just suddenly changing his tune entirely because he realizes he has no idea what's on this, and he's scrolling. And I'm like, when did Boba Fett have the time to write a book here? You know, is this the Book of Boba Fett? Is this the thing that we've been waiting for? Because he writes that thing phenomenally fast. And I think that sums up the entire show in a nutshell. Whereas in Mandalorian, you would have the time to let these things breathe a little bit more. And you wouldn't just fly into it and suddenly, or you do a montage, for example, of something to just let time flow a little bit more so we can get to that point faster. In this show, it's just snap your fingers, the thing has happened now. And snap your fingers, we've found Grogu. Snap your fingers, Grogu's back. You know, it's just snap your fingers. Mando's right there where you need him to. You want Mando? He's right there. You know, and it's just everything is just right there, convenient. You don't have to work for anything. You don't have to do anything. I'll be back in 2 seconds. Snap my fingers. I've got my Rancor now. You know, and when you think about a whole episode of trying to get the ship back, or you know, half an episode of trying to get the ship back, they couldn't even give him like a minute, or they couldn't have even just cut outside to the Pikes just kind of getting frustrated, and then cut back in again to Boba Fett having had written his thing now for a few minutes. No, it's just quick scribble here. Go tell them that. I don't know how the language works in Star Wars, but that's just.
I get the impression he might have put a bit of flourish on it. I think he was good value in this, the mayor's assistant. I was educated in Coruscant, but that doesn't make me better than you. You know, I think it was really funny, like how he just goes, "Oh, I can sort this with some diplomacy," and it's like, really, with the Pikes out there, and you know, the way he was speaking was his vernacular. I got the impression he was sort of like adding a bit of, you know,
and that's fine, but
putting a bit of stank on it.
And I loved it, and I love that actor so much. He's so great in Veep. If you've ever seen Veep, he plays Selena Kyle's
ex-husband.
No, Selena Kyle is Catwoman. What am I talking about?
So that's Catwoman.
I was going to say, yeah.
Selena Myers. I was editing the Batman episode. Selena Myers' ex-husband, and he's so funny in it. He's so great. And he's exactly this character as well. Like, if you just want a whole show with this guy, just watch Veep. And he, but he is scrolling down on this very narrow tablet, you know, and you just think, you didn't, like, Boba Fett didn't write this, you know, and as much as I enjoyed it, I just think that sums up. I know it sounds like I'm just nitpicking, but I think it sums up everything in this show and in this episode as well, in terms of the way the action was paced. You know, we've got our team out there. But look, Cad Bane just showed up. You know, it's
clumsy. It's clumsy, and I have a very specific screenwriting note here as well for you know, we were doing our pet peeves the other day, and here we have one. You know, so the Pike Syndicate are having their meeting with Cad Bane, and they reveal to Cad Bane that they are the ones that killed the Tuskens, right? And Cad Bane goes, "Does Boba Fett know this?" And they go, No, he doesn't know this. He goes, "Okay, cool." And then moments later, within 5 minutes, he goes to Boba Fett and says, "Did you know that it was the Pikes that killed your Tusken family?" And the music goes, "Ooh," as if we're supposed to give a shit, you know, like as if we didn't know already. They're trying to. It was one of your pet peeves, John, I think, was trying to build drama out of something and mishandling dramatic irony, and that is exactly and that's a great example of that. You know, there's no tension, there's no moment in that, because we already knew. We knew that Boba Fett didn't know, but at this point, what does it matter? You know, it's so easily fixed as well. You just have them cut away. You just have them cut away in that initial meeting between the Pikes and Cad Bane, and you just don't reveal that on screen yet. And then when you get to it, then you get to Cad Bane and Boba Fett, because it's great that Cad Bane is the one to deliver that to Boba Fett, and that I love that he does that. But because we already knew, it just removes all of that dramatic value and all of that tension from it. And again, clumsy. Just from a screenwriting point of view, it's clumsy, and it's an easy thing to fix. And you know, is something that I wouldn't expect to be missed in a caliber of show like this.
I think there's some interesting decisions made to keep it tidy and for speed, and it feels like a lot of the moments weren't earned. So, like, the fact that he found that out, and the whole point was in that typical Western style, it was a bit of trash talk with emotion in it to try and make him, be really emotional and be rubbish at the quick draw, and he gets killed, kind of thing. But even the when he kills Cad Bane at the end, which I'm not sure he's entirely dead because there was still a flashing, bleeping light on his chest.
Yeah.
Did you notice that? It's like beep beep, and then it cuts off. I was like, oh, are they? Why would they do that if they're not trying to make a point that he survived it somehow? But that death, I was like, oh, he's killed him. And without having seen the Clone Wars and all their past, they've had one episode together, and like one tiny little bit at the end of the previous episode. It doesn't feel as big as it could have done if it had been dragged out for a few more episodes, because it's just like he was there. Oh, he killed him with his Tusken Raider stick. Great, and it's very quick.
Speedy. Oh, sorry. Go on, John.
No, I was just going to say, on that note, Boba Fett uses the staff that he created while he was with the Tuskens to kill Cad Bane. That would have been the moment where Cad Bane could have been like, okay, I'm wounded here. Maybe I'm going to use this knowledge. I'm going to goad him to killing me. I'm going to use this knowledge I have. It wasn't the bikers. Sorry, Mark.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
No, it's okay. And I'll do a tiny mini Hawkeye spoilers here. If you haven't seen it, then watch out. But they're doing. Have you gone? Okay, good. They're doing the exact same thing that they did with Fisk, and they've brought back. You've seen Hawkeye, yeah, Brad? I'm not spoiling it. Yeah, good. Because they're doing exactly the same thing that they did with Fisk, and they brought in this legacy character to much hype and much excitement, and they're just, he's back now. He's served his purpose. You've all been excited about it. We're going to kill him off, maybe. I'm getting bored of it now. I'm getting bored of the legacy character coming back and maybe being dead, but not, because why would you do that? And and this kind of wasted character idea. And I think it's a shame. I think it's a shame that they did that, and the character of Cad Bane as well, I think would be better served by him scurrying off, because there is something quite cowardly about that character, and he always finds a way to squirrel himself out of situations. And they made a real point of that shot. Boba Fett got him twice, and they did that pan over the top, and you're quite right, the bleeping of the lights, and I did wonder about that. But I think it will be, if he's not really dead, I think it will make that scene really age badly, because that pan shot over the top of it feels quite final. And
because what is the third or the real death going to look like eventually? Is it going to be 3 strikes to the chest or something, like, as opposed to the 2 that he got, or like how many more times? They built him up
so much as well. They built him up like to be unkillable in a way. He takes out Cobb Vanth. When he arrives, like, he scares the Rancor away. Like, the Rancor has just taken everybody out. And then Cad Bane's got his, like, little flame. It's a really little flamethrower as well. It's not even that big. It's like a kind of Lynx Africa and a bit lighter kind of thing. Like, it's like a tiny little flame. And the Rancor's gone. The thing that just killed everyone. He ate a pike, and like he just annihilated everything. And then Cad Bane shows up and chases it off, and then Boba kills him with a stick. And it's like,
anyway, though.
What?
I thought
that was a question that came. Ruth sent, longtime script department collaborator. Ruth sent a question in, or a point for you guys to kind of weigh in on that. Yeah, this Rancor just annihilates everything, destroys half the town, but a little bit of fire. He puts his hand right into the shield of the robot. He takes a bunch of blasts from the droids, and it's a little bit of fire, and he scurries away. Yeah.
He then is also not really that bothered by Mando doing the same thing like 2 minutes later.
Yeah,
and Mando gets him in the mouth as well, and he still comes back. He doesn't just sod off. Like, he gets him in the mouth, and Which also, just on a really small side note, there's no burn in his mouth either when you see him like 2 seconds later, but whatever.
Just one thing before we get on to Rancor. Sorry, I just wanted to finish off our thoughts about characters dying and so on, right? Because the post-credit scene shows Cobb Vanth in the Bacta tank. So that's why the Bacta tank was so important, was because it's actually, Chekhov's Bacta tank.
So we're gonna get his flashbacks now, to think then.
Yeah, I know, but it is true though. Death has no meaning in this show, because even the one character that I was like, oh man, and I was thinking, of course they're killing him off because he's doing Justified again, so he's not going to be free for a long time, I imagine. Any kind of hopes we had of him getting his own show or whatever are now dashed because of the new Justified revival. And I thought, okay, it makes sense. They're killing. Oh no, he's not dead. Okay. So, and Cad Bane, if he's not dead, then I'm sure they're going to have a showdown at some point, and that'll be great. I want to see more of all them, but it's meaningless, isn't it?
Well, they shot him in the shoulder.
It was a high up. Yeah,
it was
definitely
no, but they phrased it in a way where, they shot him down cold, like in cold blood. They made him. Like the people of Freetown made it sound like, he's a goner. And he's not a goner, but again, like nobody dies in this show, do they?
No, and it's getting boring now. The nobody dies.
Hang on, the Tuscans all died, all of them.
They did. That is true. And the biker gang all died. Yeah,
a genocide happened. There's just so many.
How much more death do you want? Yeah, okay,
we were talking about that episode, saying how much we felt for that moment when they got wiped out, and every Tuscan Raider that gets killed by the Pike freight train thing, you're like, oh no, they've lost another one, and it is because it had so much meaning, because they had at least one episode saying how hard it is to survive in the desert and their sort of life, and then the people that didn't get killed in this, like they didn't earn their survival, if that makes sense. They didn't necessarily do enough on a character level, or we didn't learn enough about them on a character level for us to be like, oh, thank God they survived, kind of thing. When Han and Leia are pinned down in Jedi, and you're like, yeah, they might bite it here, even though they won't, because of the main characters. You're worried for them, but just because you're invested in those characters, you're like, oh my goodness, I hope they don't get hurt, I hope they don't die. But when it's like the mods, or even Chrysanthemum, who I love, who's called Santo now, I quite like that. He calls him Santo on the radio, doesn't he? If they went, I would have been very, very sad. But when they survived, I was like, oh, okay. It was kind of like an anticlimactic.
Yeah, survival. I know what you mean. You're more bummed that they survived than you are that they.
I think from a narrative point of view, more than anything, like it's like it would have been more emotional to see them die than it is to see them survive, as with many things. But because there wasn't that character building that you got with the Tuscans, which was great, I loved that part of the series. It was sort of slightly lacking in that part.
I think the mods in particular, I think they would have served the show better if they had bitten the dust, to be honest with you, because I hated them. They really irritated me, just as the whole thing. They've been given some of the worst dialogue. It's the performances are in the nicest way possible. There's not a lot you can do with what they've been given, but it wasn't great. And there's one guy in particular, the guy with he's got a long coat and the kind of monocle, I'm going to call it, that he at one point in this, and this is an action design thing more than a character thing, but there's something coming down the street and he's turning around and he spins 360, ends up in the same place and then shoots it.
That is brilliant.
Joking?
Like it is like, so bad. It is amazing. Like how he sort of spins around, his coat goes everywhere, and it's like the Matrix or Speed or something.
Yeah, and like really the argument I've seen again and again in are about the hover scooter things. And I've heard them being called stupid, and I've heard people defend them as, you know, they're an homage to
I'm going to
George
call
Lucas
it the Mos Vespas.
Oh, yes.
John.
Do a meme. Let's
I
share it
love
on
that.
Instagram.
I've already got Uber X-Wing, mate. Like, you've got me. You're going to get me working overtime on this.
Nice, the Mos Vespas. That's brilliant.
Vespas, I like that.
This is why we're the 20th ranked screenwriting podcast out there.
I might move up to 19th with that one.
Yeah, right. But they, you know, I've heard them described as, you know, yeah, as nonsense. But like, and then the counter to that is that it's an homage to George Lucas and his love of that kind of stuff, and, you know, American Graffiti and all this, that, and the other, which I get, even though I don't think it works, but I get it. But they just, it's so on the nose. They're mods because they're modified with the thing, but they're also mods because they're mods. And it's just the whole thing. Just it's, oh god. When I heard that, I hadn't realised they were referring to them until until my rewatch this morning. I finished it like 5 minutes before we came on this call, and my eyes span in my head through like just the sheer laziness of that. The mods. Are you joking? Seriously? And the laboured like you're city folk. We're not city folk. We're great, and all this, that, and the other between the desert dwellers and the mods.
Yeah, what do they call them? Sand scurriers. What are the sand scurriers doing here?
What are the, and the fact that all the mods are British, and so they must be fancy. And then we're from the desert, y'all. You know, what are we doing? Seriously, surely we can do better than this. And that's the thing, is that they are just so disposable, and I think they tried to give them a little bit more to do here today in this last episode, and you know, I don't think it works personally. I really don't think it works. And again, it's time taken away from Boba Fett and, you know, and whatnot for people that, frankly, who cares? And
maybe they're setting up a kind of a, like, I don't know, if every character in the show is getting their own spin-off, then maybe they're getting their like high school spin-off or something like that, or, you know, it's the OC on Tatooine, you know.
That's my Disney Plus subscription cancelled if that happens. Yeah. I can't do it.
All right, let's get on to, let's finally talk about the Rancor. We've been imagining how the Rancor will get used. Obviously, he's going to ride the Rancor and all that kind of stuff. So they're all pinned down. Everything, you know, everything looks hopeless, and then you hear this yell and this roar, and you hear the thumping footsteps, and you see the kind of the spine of the Rancor over the rooftops, and then these big claws come over, and and big revelation. I'll admit, I totally forgot about the Rancor in the episode, and then I don't know. I feel like I just was distracted by all the shooting and all that, and then it shows up, and even for a moment I thought, oh, is this another thing that they're bringing in? And I was like, no, of course it's the Rancor. Like, for a microsecond, I was like, oh, it's Wave 4 or whatever it is, you know. And I don't know, how do we feel about it? I'm bummed there's no Danny Trejo. I mean, why was Danny Trejo? Where is he now? Yeah. Is he just sitting back waiting? You know, have at it, boss. You know, good luck. See you later. You know,
with no training whatsoever. Here you go.
Yeah, there was no. Yeah, that's the thing. There was no moment through. There's no time, was there? I mean, unless it happened while Mando was with Grogu. I can't imagine why or how he would have developed that relationship with. I like the idea when Danny Trejo said, oh, you know, it imprints on the first person that it sees. Okay, that sounded, yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense. If you told me that that's how certain animals behave or whatever, I could be like, okay, I believe you. But now it's clear that was just, we knew we weren't going to have any time to devote to the Rancor, so, and his relationship with the Rancor. So yeah, we're just creating this conceit that you don't need to spend any time training it. It'll just trust you implicitly and it won't try to eat you because you're the first person it saw. I just think there's probably a lot of crime bosses with Rancors that, you know, that screwed up that, and they probably had to get rid of the Rancor because of it. You know, or I take off the blindfold and someone kicks a can, the Rancor looks over, sees Jim over here in the corner, the cleaner, and now Jim is the Rancor owner, you know, and it's And
Fuck's sake, Jim! That's the third one this week, Jim.
And I just think,
stop stealing Rancors, Jim. Go sweep upstairs.
I just think it's such a stupid conceit when you see why it was there. It was so clearly there because now we don't have to write anything for the Rancor and for his relationship with the Rancor.
I liked the Rancor action. It was like a kaiju movie. It was like a bit Ray Harryhausen somewhere along the line. It moved cool. It was a cross between like Godzilla and King Kong. I liked it. I know it was surrounded in, narrative chaos in a way, but I liked it. I liked how they made it work. I like that you could see it getting hurt and it was angry, but he was in charge of it. Whether he should have been that in charge of it's another question. But even the bit where he picks up the second droid, and he waits, and Boba's like, "Just do it," and he like rips it in half. I was like, "Yes, get that Scorpionic droid, kill it!" And it's like, I really liked that. I liked where they went with it, and I liked the Grogu interaction as well. The old Crocodile Dundee with the water buffalo. It was that, and it's adorable. He lies down and has a little nap. That was almost made up for the whole episode. I was like, that's amazing.
You know what? I just felt sorry for the Rancor because they kind of almost counter to what you're saying, but they spent enough time with it, and they've humanized it, they've anthropomorphized it enough. It's not a word, but you know what I'm getting at. Enough that now it's not this big vicious thing from Return of the Jedi anymore. That it's like, we're always coming to kill the main character, and so it's kind of okay that you've done this. It's a gentle creature, and it's and all this, that, and the other. And oh no, now you're shooting at it, and you're sat there and you've got armor on. You haven't given it any armor. What's wrong with you, man? Like, and it's now it's being scratched. I felt really sorry for the Rancor, but I enjoyed it. I'm with you. I thought it was great, but the narrative chaos for me, and the fact that I'm a sucker for an animal, even a made up galaxy far, far away CGI animal. I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. But I liked it. I thought it was cool. But they just needed to do more work to make it.
It was fulfilling that.
The show.
Sorry, John. Go on.
No, I was going to say, I think he should have taken the chains off. I think it would have been such a cool moment for him. Imagine the fear. Like, okay, there's a Rancor already, like, here under control, and it's terrifying. But Boba Fett is the guy who he's trying to liberate this place. He's trying to free it from, and trying to do better than what people have done before. They're intentionally not using the word slave one to describe the ship as well, which I think ties into that idea of like we're trying to move into a more, even the idea of Freetown. There's a lot of this idea here of we're not subservient to anybody anymore. We're just used by other planets. We're designed. This planet was literally designed to be the place that Luke could get away from, right? And we're going to be more than that. We're going to be the place people want to come to, and we're going to live by a better code. And I thought, how great would it have been for him to just say, and we're going to start with the Rancor, and he's going to take off the chains, and now the Rancor is going to go to town on you guys. I'm not going to control it, and you can get out or you can stay, but I'm not going to be controlling this anymore. And it could have done a lot of damage, sure, but I think the symbolism of it could have been really profound as well, because now he stands by what he really means this. He really believes in this it would have been like this crazy kind of almost suicidal gesture because, but you could also tie it in. Like if you're going to make this, if you're going to make this rule that the Rancor trusts Boba Fett now, you could just have it be a case where Boba Fett can jetpack up to his eye line and say, okay, time to stop,
but like it could be a terrible mistake.
Yeah.
No, he's eating the Wookiee. What are you doing? Get the we
That's not in your diet.
We needed that guy.
But it's no more different than, I mean, how many people's houses have been smashed by the Rancor? Not by the droid who was targeting the humans, but by the Rancor who didn't know how roads work and decided to climb over the roofs of all the houses. Like it's.
Yeah. You see, I have a huge problem with that. Is that the and it comes back round to the mods standing there and going, "No, we must stay. The people need us here." No, they don't. No, they don't. The only reason the war is coming here is because you are here. They will go to Jabba's palace and they will siege that place, and nobody here is getting hurt. That's the smart call, and that's the smart thing to do. And so it's that agency again that Boba just doesn't have in this situation. But also it's so obvious that they just wanted the Marvel style smash up city climax, and I get the purpose for that, but Jesus, are we not a bit beyond it now? Have we not? We've seen these creatures and these big things smash up so many cities. I don't need to see something smash up a Star Wars city as well. Whereas I think the imagery of perhaps Jabba's palace on fire, Jabba's palace being crumbling, and then the idea of the freedom and rebuilding something from the ashes, and the people of the nearby town of Mos Espa maybe coming to the aid because they know that Boba has actually made this gesture to take the fight away from them, to save them in some kind or another. And then, maybe you get an Encanto, like, all the people come to help rebuild the house kind of situation. I mean, obviously not, but like, something like that, I think just could have been more interesting, at least, than just another CGI smashed up town. I'm just fatigued by it, but
there's the Star Wars fan versus the writer like conflict within all of us. I think I don't not want to see the Rancor eating pikes and smashing up a city. Of course I want to see that, but in the narrative it didn't necessarily fit. Like you said, they could have gone away somewhere safe. They could have gone to the palace, and maybe that would have been a bigger set piece. But
where the ship was.
I loved looking at it. I loved seeing it. The same as most of the things in this series. And I don't not want there to be another one. I would like there to be another one, but it might not happen. I don't think Boba's going to go away. I think he'll be in the Mandalorian if he doesn't get another season. But I think the writing, which I think most people are confused by, and they've loved some of the set pieces. The writing is the bit that's pulling us into the negative column on some of the reviews that we've done of the episodes.
Some strange choices, I think, for sure.
Before we wrap up, because I'm just conscious of time, I wanted to pose this kind of question to you guys to see. This is less about the story, more about Disney Plus itself. Imagine 4 years from now, we've got Mandalorian Season 3 and we've got Book of Boba Fett Season 2, right? And you take somebody who's never watched Star Wars before and they sit down, they watch Mandalorian, Episode 1, Episode 2, Episode 3, and so on. And they're just doing a binge over the weekend. At the end of Season 1, it brings you to Season 2. The autoplay just kicks in and you just start Season 2, right? What happens when you get to the end of Season 2 of Mandalorian? Does the autoplay recommend, or even if it's not auto playing, does it recommend that you watch Book of Boba Fett next in order for you to understand how Grogu and Mando get back together? Or does it just kick you straight into Mando Season 3, which I have a feeling it'll likely do, because it is going to be categorized as a different show on Disney Plus. In which case, our audience is going to miss the reunion, as rushed as it was. Like, how is there a brand? Like, do they need to rebrand this now and say, oh, actually, this needs to fall under, this needs to be like the next season of Mandalorian, because otherwise people are going to miss it. And you can't assume that people will have done their homework prior to that. When I started watching Downton Abbey on Amazon Prime, very different show, a colleague of mine at work told me, okay, they've mixed up the order. They've put the Christmas special that was supposed to come at the end of one of the seasons, they've put it at the beginning of one of the seasons instead. So if you just let autoplay take over, it's going to give you the end of the season first. And so just be careful of that, or something to that effect, right? And I have been, and I'm always conscious of that now, because I have seen it, like with the Batman animated series, for example, the order is all mixed up and all that. They, streaming platforms are quite happy to just let the, they just do the most basic kind of cataloging sometimes with this stuff. And I am trying to think like long term, if I'm going back just binging Mando someday while I'm working and just having it playing on my tablet in the corner, is it just going to autoplay from season 2 to season 3, or is it going to stop and recommend, or is there going to be a piece of text maybe at the beginning of Mando season 3 that says, we recommend you watch these episodes from Book of Boba Fett before you watch this? Because I can't think of any television show where I have to be that, where I have to think like that, or where the algorithm or whatever, or the programming of the streaming platform would have to do that kind of redirect.
Yeah,
and I know I know it sounds like such a silly thing to focus in on at the end of this discussion, but there are people who will say, oh, I'll watch Mando first and then I'll watch Boba Fett. And they'll be like, well, wait a minute. We just had this really emotional gut punch of them being separated. Now they're back together right at the beginning of season 3.
What happened? Yeah. Yeah, I have a case study on that one.
You have a case study?
I have a case study on that. Yeah, I have been rewatching Daredevil on Netflix. And I've gone through season 1, season 2 that dovetail very nicely with each other. And I forgot about Defenders. I forgot it existed because, most people have. And and so I allowed it to autoplay through to season 3 without really thinking about it. And I got about halfway through the first episode of season 3, and I thought, what the bloody hell is going on here? And because it just didn't pick up at all from where season 2 had left off. At which point I went online and I Googled it, and I remembered that Defenders and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and all of these other things that all dovetail together, and Iron Fist, but we don't talk about Iron Fist. They all dovetail together to make this narrative. And so yes, is the answer. Yes, they need to find a better way of categorizing these things, because in the world in which everyone now is doing, or certainly Disney are anyway, are doing these long running things, and it's branching into TV now. And you've got because what do you do with WandaVision? What do you do with Hawkeye? What do you do with all these different things? Is it up to the individual to know how to watch these things? I mean, I know that when you get to the end of WandaVision, it suggests other things to watch that are similar to, and I think it suggests other things that Wanda and Vision are in, so, Age of Ultron and things like that. But I don't know if it suggests that you then move on to the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I think is the next canonical series.
I think the thing that bothers me about this more than, for example, Daredevil or any of the Marvel stuff is, Daredevil is a chapter. Defenders is a whole chapter in Daredevil's life. And yeah, they can categorize it better, but there's only 3 episodes of Book of Boba Fett that relate to Mandalorian. And it does feel like it doesn't seem like it's enough to force Disney to do a rebrand or to be that considerate. But we're talking about the biggest kind of emotional gut punch in Star Wars for a long time being completely invalidated in the very next episode of Mando, And
I think they're just they do recaps every single time. And does it even say, like last time on The Mandalorian? I think it might say that. And it'll just say previously on The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. And then it'll show you a mix of it, and that'll be it. And it'll be like, oh, okay, I missed the thing. I need to go and see the other thing.
But now it's been spoiled for you, and by the time you've learned anyway, yeah.
Exactly. I think there's a weird thing that's gone on there that I know people who are excited about Mando 3 and they probably won't watch Boba Fett just because of the influx of shows at the moment. They're just like, no, I'm going to stick to Mando. And part of me wants to say, you kind of have to watch it now, really, to get the thing. But I mean, that was another thing that feels rushed, that they've rushed through this show so they can get Mando and Grogu back together at the start of the season to go to Mandalore. mean, that's what they're doing. They're going to go on a mission at Mandalore now with a few probably side hustles to make some credits. But it will be. We're in this unique place, like with the MCU, where there are all these other properties influencing one another. But I think to have a plot point as big as a main character coming back appearing in another show is quite unusual. All of the things that happen in MCU, they're generally in main event things. So again, spoiler for Spider-Man No Way Home. If the fact that Daredevil comes back in that, it's a main event. It's a big show. It's a big film. People are going to see that. They didn't do that at the in the bottom of another TV show somewhere that you might not get. It's the Daredevil show. It's not the Kingpin show. Kingpin showed up. Maybe he's dead. Maybe he's not. Kind of thing. He showed up in a TV show at the end, kind of thing. But it's not his show. It's Daredevil's show. Daredevil showed up in the main, in a main event, big film that everyone saw. Everyone saw that film. I hope they have by now. And it's unusual to get the main character or one of the two main characters or the main characters reunited in a spin-off of that show, off screen of that show. So they will have to recap it and spoil Boba Fett. Because to be honest, if you haven't seen Boba Fett by the time Mando comes out, you probably weren't planning to watch it anyway.
I think what they're trying to, as far as I can see anyway, they're trying to maneuver Star Wars into a Marvel-like universe. And so, certainly with the Mandalorian Filoni-verse, as people are beginning to call it, like certainly with that kind of stuff, it's meant to, I think it's meant to be that you watch all of these things. But to circle back around to your initial question, John, and it does kind of come down to a branding thing. How do you brand it? Do you look at this stuff as being standalone? Can you look at this stuff as being standalone? And is it the problem of the creator to actually consider that? Is it more to do with the consumer?
I've said it from episode 1, and I'm more convinced now than ever before that they should rebrand this as the Book of Boba Fett is a subtitle of the Mandalorian franchise. It's because he is kind of Mandalorian, isn't he? It is the Mandalorian. In the same way you've got Narcos and Narcos Mexico, you've got the Mandalorian, and then you've got this one spin-off chapter, the Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett, and you just you slot it in as the third year of the Mandalorian franchise, because it is. And you just call a spade, and that's it. And it doesn't feel weird then when you've got Mando coming in and taking over 2 episodes, because 2.5 episodes even, because it's fine. It's part of the brand. It doesn't feel like you're going off brand, which I think has been our biggest complaint all throughout this, is that Boba Fett is underused in a show called The Book of Boba Fett. But is he underused in a show called The Mandalorian? Maybe not as much, So I feel a little bit of rebranding could, which they're not totally opposed to doing, could be enough to, could be enough to, I think, to reframe this in people's minds.
It's also very interesting about the conversation about what order to watch something in, because that is a classic Star Wars thing. Like my kids are nearly old enough to watch Star Wars now, and I know what order you're supposed to watch them in, of course, but the fact that they're numbered in a different order is automatically people start to question. And it was I find it an unusual argument, but there's still an argument there that people are like, oh well, what order are you going to show your kids Star Wars? I'm like, the proper order, of course. Like, why would I show them order? Yeah, nice. But it's come up again in their TV franchise.
Yeah. There's been too many bad puns in this episode, in this discussion. I apologize. If you're still listening and still subscribed, thanks very much, guys. And thanks, Marcus and Brad, for really great discussion, I think, over the last few videos about this show. I'll definitely be rewatching the show again in the future. It'll definitely be my 3rd season of Mandalorian, even if it's not the official 3rd season. I think it'll just be a weaker link in the chain, but still a fun one all the same. I think I definitely had fun with it. We'll touch back in next week for an Obi-Wan Kenobi discussion.
Excited for that. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Cool. So get your fan theories together and start figuring out how we can use Darth Vader in a way that isn't just back to tanks, because that's my fear. Guys, thanks very much for listening. As before, do check out our website, scriptdepartment.net. Follow us on social media. You can hit the links in the description and subscribe to our podcast as well. Just search for The Script Department. Thanks very much, everyone.